How are we doing, folks? Welcome back to episode 18 of Rushcast, the show where we are making our way through Rush's back catalogue. And Happy New Year to everyone. We're in that horrible lull afterwards now, but let's get back into the swing of things. Let's get back into it, and bit by bit, it'll be Christmas again before you know it. Anyway, how are you, Paul?
I'm good, Joe, and Happy New Year to you and to all the folks online. Another year gone.
Yep.
Another year older. And I bet another year wiser, but there we go.
Yeah, not a year, another year wiser just
2024, carrying on where 2023 left off, you know.
Yeah. So we are coming closer to the end of Rushcast, but we've got plenty of stuff to enjoy in the meantime. But yet this episode we're doing another detour, and we're doing at this time the Soul solo album by Geddy Lee, my favourite headache. Some circumstances behind this album, quite a bit to go into. It's an interesting album as well. It's not a million miles away from what we're getting with Rush, but there is a few subtle differences as well. It's like he's had time to have a little play around on this, really. Very, very 90s aesthetic on there.
Yeah.
Do you remember when every CD looked like this? There'd just be like random photos of with like lines going through and But here we go. So I must admit as well, I've not had that much time to listen to the extra tracks. I might see if I can quickly get them up on YouTube and listen to them in the background quickly. I did have a listen to them, but this episode's just flown around really. I've been listening to this loads, but yeah,
I'm the same. I have listened to the two what they call the lost demos.
Yeah,
a couple of times, and I made a couple of little notes about them.
They didn't really, I think they were there, and he's finished them off.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know exactly what he did to actually have to finish them off. Whether it was vocals or whatever, or it was just a case of mixing them. I haven't got any sort of information about that. I don't know whether you have. But obviously,
I have got them. So yeah, right. I found them here on YouTube. I'll have a little.
You'll have a little
listen in the background, and
okay, fair enough.
I'll wing it. So yeah, let's get into the timeline then. So obviously, last show we did Test for Echo. That was a successful album. They did a relatively. They didn't tour Europe on this one, did they? I think they only did.
No, they didn't. No.
Did about 46 shows, maybe.
Hang on.
Well, they did two legs for it.
They did. Yeah, it was two legs, but it was 68 dates in all.
Oh, 68 in total.
Yeah, but that was just North America, US and Canada only.
Yeah, and then Tragedy Strikes with Neil Peart. Well, at this point, did he do the Buddy Rich album? At this point, was that around this time?
I've got a funny feeling it was before.
It was before that.
It was before this that he did it. I think it was about sort of 94, 95. I could well be wrong.
So anyway, they do the tour for Test for Echo, and then Tragedy Strikes Neil. It's been well documented at this point, but his daughter tragically died in a road accident on her way to college or university, and within the year, his wife then died of cancer. So he lost his entire family in a real short space of time, and he had a Forrest Gump moment where after the funerals and everything was settled, he found himself alone in his house and just felt the need to move. Otherwise, he was going to go insane. Again, well documented in the Rush documentary, and it was also documented in his book, Ghost Rider. So while all this is going on, Rush, the entity that is Rush, is kind of in limbo. No one really knows what's going to happen, and no one really wants to ask either. So Alex and Geddy are just letting Neil do what he has to do, and they're here when he needs it, when he needs them, basically. I have read Ghost Rider, and he did say there was a couple of times when he did meet with Geddy and Alex, and he just said the band wasn't even mentioned. It was just, they were just friends, just there, that where they needed him. Yeah, they were what he needed them to be. And over time, Neil resettles and feels ready to return. So it is a happy ending in the end, and we get Vapor Trails, which we'll be covering next episode. But in that time, in that lull period, there was a bit of what do we do? And I don't know what Alex did, but Geddy kept busy and did this album. There was no touring. He didn't play a single live show off the back of this, which I thought was quite surprising. I thought he would have done maybe a low-key club tour or something, or maybe even I don't know, maybe playing a few tracks on like a talk show or something like that. But there is a video, like a sort of like 11-minute sort of promo video, where Lee explains he was kind of reluctant solo artist, really. He's just sort of did it in order to do something. Quoting Lee now, I think I backed into this project. I never had a great desire to make an individual statement, and I certainly didn't want any more attention. I satisfy so much of my music self in the context of Rush, so I didn't have any great frustrations from that point of view. But once in a while, you wonder what's it like out there? What's it like to work with other people? Lee explaining how he wrote the lyrics for My Favourite Headache. Most people are like this. They think of stuff during the day. The mind goes to certain places. They remember things. They try to figure things out. To remind yourself to write that stuff down is a great benefit. Then you come back to it and analyze it days later and lyrically shape what you felt when you wrote it down. For me, I feel about what I wrote down turns into a song. And the title, My Favourite Headache, is basically the process. It's referring to the process of when an idea for a song takes fruition of recording it and getting to that finished product, basically. And it's that whole process of writing, recording, and mixing an album. It's his favourite headache.
Yeah. But he said, with regards for that title, My Favourite Headache, he actually got that from Ben Mink's parents, as Lee recounts. I don't know if you got this. He says here, Ben's dad was telling him a story about something that had happened to his mother, and he said in his Polish accent, and I'm not going to try and do an accent, and right away she gets the favourite headache. Once I stopped laughing, I realised what a great phrase that is, and I became determined to use it. And as you've said, it represents my sort of reluctant relationship with making music. I love it, but it drives me crazy, because once I get into a project, I'm completely consumed by it. And that's a comment from Lee himself on that. So, but yeah, like you said, he was more of a reluctant solo artiste.
Yeah, much like Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains. His first two solo albums, it was sort of, he didn't really want to do them. He was quite happy being in a band, but it wasn't a choice.
I think for this, it was, you've already touched upon obviously the double tragedy in Neil's life, and for Alex and Geddy, they said, Neil was there, but he was at arm's length. They couldn't really reach him, even though, as you've shared, they met a couple of times. It was still quite a fragile thing. They didn't really know how to help him best. And I think Geddy summed it up, I think, on the film, saying that we just let him know that we were there for him as and when he needed us. But Neil just ran. he just ran. He just got away, and he was away on his bike, literally on his bike.
Yeah.
And he's, he shared things that in the end, he rode 55,000 miles all the way up into the Arctic, Alaska, coming all the way down West Coast America and into Mexico, all the way down to Belize, I think, and then back again. I mean, that's a long journey.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, he didn't do it in one hit. He just obviously stopping off here and there. And I remember it again, Geddy and Alex, I think it was Geddy again, saying that they would get the occasional postcard from him with one of their 1,000 nicknames for each other written on it. So they knew he was okay and he was out there. But I think Alex said at this time he just didn't feel like playing the guitar. He might pick up the guitar once in a while. And Geddy didn't. He said there was no point in discussing anything about Rush at this point. He said it just wasn't worth it. It just didn't really cross their minds. They said Alex and Geddy might have spoken occasionally. He said, but there was no point. There really wasn't. And he quoted at that time, he said, Rush, we can't do anything without him in the band, without Neil in the band, even though he's the new guy, as he said. So they were on hiatus. Everything was shut down at that point. And they did think that Test for Echo was their last album. They really seriously thought that. So, yes, it was... I think possibly just for something for Geddy to do. As you said, I don't know what Alex was doing. I think he might have been practicing his golf swing perhaps a bit more.
Yeah.
It might have been a case of that, because I know he quite enjoys his golf. I'm just trying to see. Have you got any comments on this or anything in the book?
Not really. There's not much to go on.
No, I've not got a lot. I've got a little bit. It's just like a paragraph or two. It says here, while Lifeson's solo album, which was some 4 years previous, because obviously this was released 14th of November 2000, so it was still a little bit of time before they would start working on Vapor Trails and getting back together, but that was a whole other process. Says here, while Lifeson's solo album Victor featured an enormous number of brilliantly off-the-wall ideas executed in an arguably disorderly fashion, My Favourite Headache is basically the opposite. Lee's talent as a songwriter is inarguable, or unarguable, I should say, and this album demonstrates excellent melodic sensitivity as well as lush and emotive harmonies. But the chaotic and haphazard influence of Lifeson and also the drumming of Piat is missing on tracks like, and it names here Grace to Grace, which is the last track on the actual album. But I would say that there's probably a few candidates on this album for being Rush songs.
I think they could all work as Rush songs.
Yes, they could. I mean, some more than others.
I mean, if anything, whilst listening to this, it made me, it sort of showed me how much Geddy does contribute.
Oh yeah, just a bit. It just carries on. It says that perhaps, missing on tracks like Grace to Grace that perhaps otherwise may have become classic Rush songs. There are more delicate songs on here, but we'll obviously get to them, such as Slipping and Steel, despite lacking the drive and excitement that many Rush fans love, are perhaps the most creatively successful of the album, with Lee expressing a previously unseen side of his songwriting. Well, obviously these are things we're going to get into, have a chat about, but let's I'm ready when you are. I mean, it's I think what you said, Joe, is true. You probably could. Would any of these tracks be out of place on a Rush album? No,
especially not the later albums.
No, because I think inevitably it would be that, because he is the voice of Rush.
Yeah, and
you know,
there's not much really written about the album in
no,
any of these Rush books I've got.
No, I've tried looking and I can't find anything. I've had to do.
The album just sort of came and went, really. And,
yes, it did.
I think once Neil, said he was ready to get up and running again, I think it was cast aside, and
I think Neil said he was ready to.
I think this was basically laying the foundation just in case it came to it, because I don't, even today, Geddy, I think, is still the one that's raring to go, and I think he was getting ready to become a solo artist if it came to it. I think things didn't carry on, he probably would have done a second album. I mean, and then eventually would have made his way doing whatever with whoever,
And he's got some good musicians on this.
Yeah, but he would have had all the musicians. You can imagine like Michael Portnoy and the guitarist from this band or that band. He could have joined a whole host of super groups and side projects, and and then he could have thrown out a few Rush songs at the end of the set that wouldn't have hurt anyone. Yeah. So I think he would have been all right as a solo artist, but I don't think it's obviously not what he wanted. But I think this was just laying that foundation stone just in case it did come to it. But yeah, it's a nice little sidestep. Like I said, it's an interesting album. It's a nice album. It's quite a mellow, mostly a mellow album, really. Yeah. And I suppose it's him not really knowing what he wants to do, but therefore he can do anything. But it's also a much more disciplined album than Alex's Victor, which was he was throwing everything at the wall and seeing
it was
stuck. And,
basically, this is a more concise. Definitely. It's a good.
Before we get into the music, let's just quickly go through the personnel then. Right, so we've got Geddy Lee, obviously bass vocals. He also does a bit of piano and guitar, as well as some percussion and programming. Ben Mink was the main co-songwriter, as well as guitarist, some string arrangements, violins, etc. So it was him, Geddy and Ben were the main songwriters on the project.
Well, they're great friends.
They are. But Geddy does the lyrics, but the music was Geddy and Ben. And then drums, you've got Matt Cameron, who was in Soundgarden and then later joined Pearl Jam, then jumped back into Soundgarden when Soundgarden reformed. But
he jumps on all of them.
Soundgarden's now finished, obviously, with the death of Chris Cornell. But he's also done a few other bits and bobs as well along the way. He obviously was on the Temple of the Dog album. For those that don't know, you had Mother Love Bone, but on the literally weeks before their album was to come out, the singer overdosed and died. But Mother Love Bone is a great album. But and that was just as that whole Seattle grunge scene was taking off. Mother Love Bone, I think, they were to be the band that led the way. So Andrew something, I forget the guy's name now, dying really threw a spanner in the works. Off the back of that, there was the Temple of the Dog album, and it was a bunch of musicians off the back of Mother Love Bone recorded that project in sort of tribute. Oh God, I can't forget the guy's name, Andrew something. And then Temple of the Dog literally split in half and became Soundgarden and Pearl Jam. And then two bands then went off. But Temple of the Dog later reformed in I say reformed. They came together and did a couple of shows for the anniversary of that album and played that album in full. But at the time, Chris Cornell and Eddie Vedder sharing lead vocals, it wasn't a big thing. But if that album had come out 20 years later, it would have been a super group, But obviously Matt Cameron drummed on everything Soundgarden did, and then around that time when Soundgarden eventually split, Chris Cornell went to to do a solo career.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam's drummer left, so he just jumped ship and joined Pearl Jam around 2000. So yeah, he's got a and he's also done a few side projects, and he's drummed on a couple of different people's solo albums and this and that and the other. So yeah, a well established drummer in his own right. Very different drummer to Neil, obviously, not as all over the place, but it's not really needed on these songs anyway. And there's still some pretty.
There's some good drumming on it. There is some drumming on it.
And Jeremy Taggart drums on one track, "Home of the Strange." And then you got a couple of other additional percussion by Chris Stringler, Ed Wilson on additional programming. Then we got John Freeson on cellos. Perfect. Waylon Wall does steel guitar on Window, and Pappy Rosen backing vocals on Slipping. Yeah, I think that's about it. And it was recorded in a number of different locations and
various locations.
I can't really be bothered to go into that.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Right, let's get into the tracks.
Let's get into it.
So the opening with the title track, My Favourite Headache, I think sort of kicks things off nicely, sort of establishes the grounds. You got opening with a nice big beefy bass riff. It kind of starts in sort of stages, and it's a bit of an odd time signature the way the song's arranged, but then goes nicely into like a string-led chorus. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Primus, not quite as crazy, but I think the influence is there. I think it's a good opening track, a good way to kick the album off, especially with that bass.
Absolutely. It's I think a nicely captured. I think the production on this album is pretty good as well. It's been quite well produced and engineered, and I believe Geddy was involved in that as well, wasn't he? He was also producing it.
Yeah.
As well. So along with who was engineering it? David Leonard, mixed and engineered by David Leonard. But he's involved in it as well. Yeah, nice and clear, very precise. I think you're left in no doubt that kicking off with the bass is totally apt, obviously being Geddy's album. A good opening song. I'll put a comment, it's not, but the verses are quite, to me, almost grungy in the way that it feels to me. Yeah. I know it. And then, as you said, it just opens up into these very nice, spacious choruses. And the piano, very melodic. And I do like the drums. It's some nice drum breaks in there. It's quite underneath it all. It's sort of quite bombastic in places. And I like the solo on this one as well. It's not Alex, obviously, but it ain't bad. Not bad at all. Comment about lyrics. What do you think about the lyrics as a whole on the album? I mean, I've been looking at the lyrics. I think
it's quite surprising, because you think where he's let Neil take the forefront of the lyrics all this time, it's like you'd be forgiven for thinking he'd forgotten how to write them. I think they're
quite good.
Generally. Yeah, everything he writes in this fits and isn't. And it's still sort of in the same theme as what Rush would have been anyway.
Yeah, I think so. He's obviously he's learned a lot from Neil. He's not Neil. Yeah, there are some. I think that, put it this way, it's a massive step on from "Hey baby, it's 7:45. I feel I'm in the mood." Which is a long time ago now, and you can see that there's a lot of maturity in these lyrics. And I've sort of just been scanning through the lyrics on this. I mean, I think the thing with Geddy generally on the album is the choruses they're generally a hook. I mean, I watch TV. What do you want from me? I mean, they're quite straightforward, but the verses have got quite a bit. I mean, just the opening couple of lines: one man standing on the plains of Abraham, watching a damaged sunrise. One man standing near the bridge of a quiet breakdown. I watch the sea, it helps to anchor me. Yeah, there's a bit more there. I mean, it leaves a lot of space for you to fill in the blanks yourself.
Fill in the blank, yeah, perfectly vague, yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think it's been quite cleverly put together. So I was not just listening to the music, I was listening to the lyrics as well, because you'd think lyrically would be the massive difference from Rush to anything solo. With Alex's album, yes, definitely. But I think Geddy's done he's had a better stab at it, definitely.
I think as well, this there's a lot of hidden details that reveal themselves the more you listen to it. This album certainly does reward repeated listens. It's a good idea to stick with this album for a good week. And
yeah, it's very layered.
Yeah,
got very
the
layered
first couple of listens, you're like, yeah, it's all right. Everything's in place, but it's pretty much
some very clever arrangements,
solid but unremarkable. But the more you listen to it, subtle little things start sticking in your head, little melodies here and there, and you think, no, this actually got a lot going on.
It has got a lot.
Right, so kicking off then with the present tense. Yeah,
like the guitar riff. I mean, you think, is that Alec Lyson playing? I mean, it would be a riff, that sort of riff he would come up with.
With the nice sort of piano-led and acoustic verses, and then kicking in again with the quite a driven chorus with the guitars and that. It's I
think it is. I think it breathes nicely. It's quite a joyful song. It's quite upbeat. You know, very. I'm just looking again if there's anything lyrically that sort of leapt out of you.
As I was saying, like with past couple of albums, I said like it feels like a very nice sort of open road feel to it. The like the way the cover is, it's a crisp blue sky, but feels quite fresh as well. It's kind of, it has that feeling about it, doesn't it? It's like
it does.
And I suppose that's where his mind frame was at the moment. Is there's nothing but possibilities at the moment. Is a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the words on this. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the lyrics at all.
Well, I just thought living in the present tense was about making the most of today, because not really knowing what's going to happen.
Well, I think just in that opening verse, I think probably sums it up quite nicely. Living in the present tense, when you lose the past and the future makes no sense.
Yeah,
you're living in the present tense. You know, so crawling out, secure and confident, imbued with innocence, ready for the whirl. Suddenly the view was more intense, living in a different kind of world. I won't keep picking out all the lyrics, but there are some nice lines in this.
There's good stuff there, yeah.
Definitely. Very, 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 very good song. As I said, I think the vocals it's quite a melodic vocal line on this. It's sort of quite, you got that hook there. What was that and the guitar? It's you think, this definitely wouldn't be out of place on a Rush album. Definitely not. You can only imagine what sort of solo Lyson would stick on something like this, so it'd probably be something a bit off the wall, but then again the arrangement might be slightly different. I think it's inevitable you're going to compare it to
how can you not?
How can you not? I mean, at the end of the day, Lee, it's the two main writers musically of Rush were Lee and Lyson, so but I think Lee, with regards to his arranging skills, I think you can see where Rush get it. Most of the influence would come from Lee's sense of arrangements in things. So, yeah, I like it. It's a nice song, quite punchy, in and out. No real. It doesn't hang around long enough to get bored with it, So I quite like.
No, there's no. Again, there's no. He's not taking this opportunity to go full prog again, is he? I mean, there's no song really over 5 minutes on the album.
No.
All the songs kind of just get on and do what they've got to do.
I think, yeah. Just looking at I mean, this is one of the shorter ones. This is 3.
That would have been I mean, that would have maybe he could have done that.
He could have
if he'd carried on. He could have gone. Do you know what? I'm going to give the certain audience what they want, and I'm going to go all progtastic. He could have done some mad concept album or whatever, but he stuck to what was natural to him at the time.
Yeah.
But shall we crack on to Window of the World?
Yeah.
This is quite an odd little song as well. This is very much. It feels sort of his time. This one, I like this sort of odd little. I don't know, like a very fuzzy sort of riff that it opens up with, and then goes into like a nice sort of laid back structure, but then kind of kings into a bit more of a power chord during the chorus. Again, feels very sort of rock by numbers, really, a bit radio rocky. It was,
I wouldn't disagree with that. I think lyrically it's probably one of these simpler ones, but it's got that nice hook, especially with them expansive choruses. Give me that. It just gives the space for that. Those words give me that window to the world. You know, I quite like the melody on this. I found myself humming this one. Just those choruses, so it's obviously stuck in there a bit, but lyrically it's quite straightforward, really. I wouldn't say it's anything out of the ordinary, but it's not a bad set of lyrics on it. The vocals, the verses are quite short and sweet and to the point, and it just leaves it for that.
It's not really rocking, but it does roll.
It's okay. It rolls along quite nicely. I've got nothing more to say about that one, and that is I don't know if it's the shortest one on the album. I think it might be the shortest one, actually. Yes, this is the shortest one on the album. At just over 3 minutes, literally 3 minutes and 1 second, whereas the present tense is about 3:25. So they're the two shortest on the album by the looks of it. Yes, they are. So right.
Let's go on then to Working It Perfect. I mean, this has been I was saying to Paul before we started recording, this is a real weird time of year, and I feel like there's been a bit of a slogging along as this week's gone by, and this album's been quite fitting to how I've been feeling this week, because in a lot of ways it's a very melancholic album. It's very, and this is quite a melancholic song. It's got this sort of sad main riff running through it, while Geddy has that whoa like intertwining in it all, and then you've got that chorus with like a cello, that dun 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 dun, working it perfect, and it's just it's
quite atmospheric. I think quite a brooding song.
I'm not saying melancholic.
But it does. It's got I think this particular song has got quite a lot of weight and depth to it, and I like the strings on this. Are very to me very Beatles-ish, very Beatles. It sort of gives me that sort of vibe, and I like the arrangement. It's a very complex arrangement, and I think isn't this the one where they've got the celloist on it? I think it's the celloist on this.
There is a string arrangement on it, but then
there's but most of that would have been done by Ben Mink. But I think it is. I'm sure, it is. It's that John Friesen. Yeah, it is. I think this is the only song he appears on. You can hear those cellos, and obviously they must have worked him quite hard because it's all multi-tracked and stuff. Yeah, it sounds really. I like it. Like you've already said, the vocals on this one are quite. I was looking at the lyrics again. Yeah. This one has got a bit more structure to it lyrically. I mean, yeah, draw a line strong and clear, make it bend to your will. All the lines in a face so hard to make stand still. Working at perfect, got me down on my knees. Success to failure, just a matter of degrees. Success to failure, just a matter of degrees. Yeah, again, I think lyrically it's a nice song. It's quite cleverly put together. Nothing is perfect, certainly not me. Success to failure, just a matter of degrees. And he just seems to work it round on itself all the way throughout the song.
I guess in true Geddy Lee fashion, he's misspelt perfect.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah,
I don't know why it would be spelt that way. Perhaps somebody online would know the reason why.
Well, a nod and a wink, innit? Working on perfect.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it would be that. That's the obvious one, but I don't know if there's anything deeper than that, or whether it's just as straightforward as that. But I like this one. This one, it would have been interesting to see. This is one of the ones I had earmarked that this would be an interesting one to see what Alex and Neil would have done with this one.
Yeah,
I think with it's all conjecture, obviously. I mean,
it's kind of a lost Rush album in a way, but
yeah, I mean, how much of
a million miles?
How much of Lee's lyrics would have been used, and whether he would have given stuff to Neil, and Neil would have done something else with it. I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
But I think one of the highlights of the album, this particular song. I do quite like. I quite like this one.
Right. What do we think then of Runaway Train? This one picks up the pace slightly.
Yeah.
It's got like a nice sort of a middle of the road. Counting Crows. Am I hearing Counting Crows in this one? A bit of
possibly a little bit of that. I think to me this is yeah, you could imagine. I mean, the title of the song sort of conjures up that image anyway, and with that,
it's got a bit of a country twang in the main.
Yeah, to me, it's sort of like I don't know what you would sort of West Coast American sort of guitar sound, slightly heavier, but it's just got that. It's sort of, you can imagine being on a train listening to this one. You know, it just seems to, it rolls on, doesn't it? It's
and I mean, also taking in a horizon view as well. Yeah,
there's
always a lot of open country on Rush songs. I always feel,
which is fine. Yeah. You want it. Yeah, they sort of, it paints a picture. I think musically it does, and lyrics again. I've sort of looked at, so I keep looking down at the phone because I've got the lyrics on the phone. I mean, obviously the hook line is "You've got to want it." You know, I mean, from a sort of a funny point of view, I just get that you've got to want it. I just keep thinking, I don't know why, but Fast Show and the two tailors in the men's gentleman's store. Or do you want it, sir? You know, and all this sort of stuff. But anyway, that's just the way my weird mind works. It's again, the lyrics are pretty. They're fairly straightforward. It's not Neil, but it's not bad lyrics at all on this. I think for people just need to go and have a look, otherwise I'll end up just spieling the whole lot out.
I do wonder if these songs would, if they were played live, add a bit more beef to them, because I like these. The chorus to Runaway Train does have a bit of drive to it, especially there's a little bit where there's like this little spacey part where, and then Geddy sort of holds this line, and then dun, 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 and it kicks back in again. And I do think if he had a band together where there wasn't so much,
they'd bring it right down.
Studio fluff and all the multiple tracks and all the mixing and all the rest of it. If there was just him maybe could have had a 4-piece, could have had 2 guitarists, maybe, but the songs would have been stripped to basics. As I am curious if he played these songs live, if they had a bit more of a kick to them.
Probably.
I don't think playing this whole album with a few maybe less obvious Rush songs peppered into the set just to, give the set a kick now and then, like 2-3 numbers off of this album, then a Rush song, but a lesser obvious Rush song.
Yeah.
Just peppered through the set, I think would have been quite a nice set list if he'd have played, smaller venues than what Rush would have been playing, obviously. But I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think.
Yeah, I'm surprised he never did anything with it, really.
Well, so obviously he was happy to do this, but probably had no real desire to go on the road.
Yeah.
And do anything at this time. Again, I'm just, while you're talking, I'm obviously listening to what you're saying. I'm just seeing where. No, it's I think it just quote the last little bit of the song. It just says, if you don't want it, it remains the same. It's a heart of darkness that wants to play that game. If there's no defiance, it remains insane. If it's all compliance, it's a runaway train. And then he just repeats that. It's a runaway train. I think for me, and this is no detriment to the thing, it's probably, of all the songs on this particular album, it's probably my least favourite. But I'm not saying it's terrible.
Yeah.
I just think I think it's just, it sort of does what it says on the tin, really.
Yeah.
And it's there. But not bad.
Okay, well, let's move on then to The Angel's Share. This is quite a nice, where I said about the other song was quite melancholic. This one's quite mellow, but quite sort of breezy and a refreshing song. Yeah. It's got nice string arrangements, nice acoustic guitar. It's got a nice sort of little keyboardy bit, like a sort of flutter comes in the chorus. But yeah, this one, I think this definitely reminds me of a Rush song. It certainly reminds me what would they go on to be, The Garden.
Yeah.
And it's even got a nice little solo as well. Nothing too flash, but it sort of sears through the song nicely. Yeah. And this is a good song. I like this one.
Yeah, again, probably one of my favourites on here. Again, I like the arrangement of the string sections on this, but that bit that you're saying where it sort of sweeps up, I think that's keyboards, but it could be with the strings as well on that. So it's very, very nicely done, nice arrangement. Some good lyrics on this one as well.
Yeah, I remember the lyrics to this one actually. Excuse me. I'm still fighting off a cold as well.
Yeah, it's been going
I'm all right
around.
myself, but I'm still a bit groggy. But basically it's sort of pondering the big questions and the big, it's like, well, if you figure it out, come and let me know. Basically, is the
which is,
I mean, that's figure out the problem.
Yeah,
come and tell me to my face.
if we are only members of the human race, no supernatural beings from a supernatural place. If you can't solve the problem, come and tell me to my face. So it's. Yeah, I do quite like the lyrics on this one. The angels share the secrets of the universe. It's seldom fair, partly blessing, partly curse. I mean, that's just the opening verse. Yeah. All those dreams we cannot know. We dream, we hypothesize. Maybe these are secrets shared by those watching from the sky. Yeah, I think the lyrics actually fit this particular song very well. You're starting me off now.
Yeah, it's all right.
That's all right. It's not that you just get dry and then suddenly the tickle in the throat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like this one. again, I think this one is another one of those standout tracks on the album. I'll put it up there with Working It Perfect. I do enjoy it. I do like this one quite a lot. Nice, quite emotive.
Yeah.
Quite emotive. And I agree with you. It would be interesting. Again, we're only can surmise what Rush would have made of this one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Mm.
But there you go. Moving to Bohemia.
Oh, yes. Yeah, what do you think of this one?
A nice little, it's another sort of mid-paced REM-y kind of song. I do like the main.
You like the quote like REM, don't you?
Yeah, they do remind me of REM a lot, though. I like the main. This is the earworm of the album. I like that main riff that kicks in during the chorus. That, you know, I don't know the words, but yeah, this one's got the most memorable chorus.
There we go. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'm moving to Bohemia, taking you along, saying say goodbye to suburbia. You don't have to cut the lawn. It's basically, yeah. I had a dream of a different place. I had a dream that you had a different face. I heard a scream of a desperate kind. I've got a feeling that you're gonna love what you'll find. Nice bass line on this. He's quite busy on the bass on this one.
This one feels like a band's playing.
Yeah,
you know, it's
it is. Again, I've put down here nice use of the strings again on this one, and I do like the drumming on this. The drumming on this track actually propels this song forward very nicely indeed. It just gives it that nice live feel, which is what you just said. Really, it feels it. And some I've put from a drumming point of view, there's some good tom work on this one. It really stands out. You know, I quite like it. But yeah, it's
got a really good chorus as well.
Yeah, it is. It's quite a catchy chorus. I mean, each time though, the chorus is slightly different. That was the first one I quoted. The second one is I had a dream from a different place, or for a different place. I had a dream that you had a different face, which is the same. I hear the beat of an anxious heart. I feel the heat. It's time for us to start. And the last one, here we go. Is that the same as that one? Yeah, and it's just a repeat of the original chorus. But again, it's quite, to be honest, the chorus is quite wordy. There's quite a lot of words in those choruses.
Yeah.
And it's wide enough for it to, musically, for it to sit there. So it doesn't sound cluttered in any way or form. Because sometimes you can have so much going on, and then you get a lot of words over the top. Sometimes you can get a little bit, well, I can anyway. It's just trying to pick out the wood from the trees, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But no, I like it. I like.
Yeah.
Good song.
It's one of the highlights of the album for me.
Yeah, it rocks along quite nicely.
Home on the Strange. It's quite a funky little number. It's got a lot of.
It's exactly what I put. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that sort of, again, that sort of 90s funk when a lot of rock bands tried experimenting with funk, and but yeah, you got a lot of like jingly jangly sort of riffs on the guitar. Geddy's sort of let him rip on the bass a lot. It kind of makes me think of bands like Fishbone, or maybe King's X or King's Cross, as I heard yesterday. Some people actually call that band King's Cross.
Yeah, but that's what I thought it was. I thought it was King's Cross.
Who knows? Yeah, but yeah, it's got that, you know, early Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know,
that's what sort of conjured up to me
and a bit of Primus as well. Obviously, we know Primus sort of lit a fire under them when they supported them, and they sort of returned the influence that Rush gave to Primus. Primus gave it back to them whilst watching them every night. But yeah, it's got that kind of, it's got a bit of an early 2000s feel to it as well. I can still sort of pinpoint music sort of as the late 90s went into the 2000s. So there is that little
Yeah.
That little window that it reminds me of that, and it kind of, I don't know. Is this got a bit of a Rush feel to it? It's certainly. I think this would have.
It could. I think with Rush they would embrace any sort.
I mean, yeah,
yeah, they could embrace any sort of style, but I think possibly it wasn't as overtly funky.
Yeah.
As this is, and this is the one that Jeremy Taggart drums on, isn't it? I don't know anything about Jeremy Taggart. I don't know what bands he was in before or what he's done since. I don't know whether he's just a session musician or anything like that. I don't know if you've got anything on that, Joe. I must admit I ain't had a chance to really sort of go in on that side of things. I was just really concentrating on this. But I like
a band called Our Lady Peace. That's his main project by the looks of it.
Okay. I can't say I've heard any of it.
He did. He drummed on the song "Hero" of the Spider-Man soundtrack, which Chad Kroger from Nickelback recorded with the guy.
Oh, okay.
What was the other guy's name? Saliva or something like that. But yeah, he drummed on that. So it looks like he's been about doing different. What's the word? Session stuff, but his main project, what he's mainly known for, is a band called Our Lady Peace.
Our Lady Peace.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. I've learned something new today, so that's cool. But I like the funky feel on this, and I like the interplay between the drums and the bass on this. It's quite. He certainly with the snare hits and that, he's sort of picking out certain phrases of the bass line. It sounds. I like it. It gives it that slight lilt to it. It feels quite good. I was just looking at the lyrics on this. It's about a very introverted person, really, who doesn't want any change of any kind. It's sort of almost. I mean, I don't wish to do this because we all have our versions of it. It's a bit like an American redneck. Don't like change. That's how it sort of comes across, and I do apologise to anyone who would consider themselves an American redneck. I do apologise. It is not an insult. I just get that you don't like the change. It says
Hollywood. Hollywood stereotype of how they would portray her.
It's it. But I mean, opening line: he sleeps with a chainsaw, got eyes like an outlaw. He takes a 2-smoke walk. He don't like to talk, and he don't like change, and he don't like change. You may think he's deranged, but he'd rather be home on the strange. But he says here he's a Canadian icon.
There you go.
He sleeps with his clothes on. He likes to work with his hands. He's an apolitical man. So, yeah, basically politically neutral. And but it's quite. It rocks along quite nicely. I say rocks along. It funks along quite nicely.
Yeah.
Once in a lifetime. One in a lifetime. One in a world. One in a lifetime. Yeah. He sleeps with a chainsaw. He sings far, 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 far. He likes to work with his hands. It's not the widest and biggest set of lyrics, but there's some. It's almost comical to me. It's sort of a bit tongue in cheek, I guess.
Yeah.
For a certain person. So, again, my apologies to any rednecks out there. It's just and people who don't like change, but this is a good anthem for you if you don't like change.
I don't like change.
I don't like change either, so I'm one as well. So there you go.
Moving on, then we're coming to the end. Slipping again, another melancholic number.
This is the longest song on the album. Slipping.
I
would say arguably, I agree. It's totally melancholic, but I really like this one. I think it's a very emotive song, and again, this is one that to me is screaming out for an Alec Lifeson solo on it.
Yeah, one thing that Geddy's quite, he's very good with his vocals and his melodies and the way he puts stuff together, because there's a lot of backing vocals, and even that da na na na, he's really
that's
good
where the solo should be.
Yeah,
that I can just hear it. I can hear one of Alec Lifeson's very emotively played solos, because it would just fit this particular song. I like the lyrics on this because it sort of conveys and portrays feelings that many of us have experienced in our lives. Nice piano as well. It's not quite sparse, but it's very tastefully done. But I mean, I think that the lyrics are just sort of dripping with a lot of meaning. I mean, meant to tell you from the start, meant to show you what's inside this shallow heart. But I could not find the words worthy enough to say. And then there's that, I slipped along the way.
Yeah.
And that happens, doesn't it? Sometimes we want to say things and we can't quite bring ourselves to say it. And then that moment's gone.
Yeah.
Try to be there when you fall. Try to make you feel big when life makes you feel so small, or feel small. But I could not find the steps quickly enough to take. I think that arguably, possibly, his best lyrics on the album. I think it's just quite. I think because they're quite. He's put them down simply, but it just conveys an awful lot. So I quite like. I like that. That's something that sort of appeals to me. And you've said it's quite melancholic, but I think it's something we can all relate to as well.
Yeah.
Certainly with regards to relationships and stuff. I think even the last, I'm going to quote the last verse, want to change things, want to clear the air, fix the things around us so badly in need of repair, but I might not have the sense enough to change. I like the song, and it, for me, arguably, it is my favourite one. It's the one I really enjoy listening to, and say when it comes to that vocal harmony bit, the bit that you've already done, I just think I could just imagine a really beautiful solo there. And I think Piet as well, I'm not going to forget Neil, I think drumming wise, he would have put some of his signature stuff on this as well, and I think that would have really elevated it.
Yeah.
Beautiful song. Really, really enjoyed it. And again, we've said it all throughout, very well arranged. There's enough space there and air for the whole thing to breathe.
And then moving on into Still, I think Slipping and Still fit each other quite nicely, sort of back to back. The sequence of the album fits quite well, because again, this is quite another it's a very mellow song, but
it is. Yeah, it is. Which you wouldn't expect. Rush might do one on an album, but to have a couple. But again, I
just think this is probably where he was at the time. I think this is a very, as I was saying, at this time of year, there's been around Christmas and around, that little bit between Christmas and New Year, time seems to stand still a little bit. And then you've got this sort of lull at the afterwards where everyone's sort of going through the motions, getting back into the swing of things. And there's that little period of not really doing anything. And I'm listening to this album in that part of the years, I think suited it quite well. And songs like Still and Slipping and things like that kind of summed up my mood quite well actually.
It might be possibly the reason why I've enjoyed them, because of it being this time of year.
But it kind of fits where Geddy was at the time as well, because he's written sort of has 1 foot in and 1 foot out of Rush. He doesn't quite know where anything's going. Yeah, and he's sort of pondering. Yeah, well,
he's writing. Writing's what coming from within and what he's feeling and what he's experiencing, and I think that's you know, just totally applaud it. You know, just great. And again, a nice set of lyrics on this one. Again, very, 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 very good. I mean, still halfway up the hill. My fingers may bleed, but I've got to get there still. Standing on the hill, my spirit's released, but I've got to get there. And say, I won't quote all the lyrics of the verses. The verses are nice, though, again, on this.
That's a great
really,
lyric as well.
It is a really, but I mean, I'll just quote a bit of the second verse. It says here, look good from a distance, but the closer I claim it becomes more daunting, but these moments will pass. So it's somebody embarking on some sort of journey, really, and not necessarily a physical journey, but it could well be, but very much an emotional journey, I guess. Lost in abstract thought, dazed and distracted, winded, yet still I'm caught with a fragment of doubt, slowed by reflection, but these moments will pass. And lovely. Again, but the music fits it, or they fit the music very well. Again, very subtly, there's some intricate bass going on this song in the verses. Some very, very, very nice bass playing on it, but it doesn't leap out at you. It's very much there in the background, quite subtle. Again, not a song that I would skip, put it that way.
Well, we've come into the last track then, Grace to Grace. Again, this is another, this is a bit more rocking, this one. They certainly up the pace on this one. But in the verses, well, funny enough, it has like a rocking verse, but then goes into a mellow chorus where it's got a nice sort of main riff to it, just like a more standard rock riff, really. Like, you know.
Yeah.
And then the drums kick in, but then when it comes into the chorus, because you can't do you have like a bit of rock and roll piano in the background, like a ding 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 ding? Just sort of...
it's there's a little bit of that, but it's to me it sounds like there's a slight sequence, almost like a hi-hat going.
Yeah, and then but then it comes into the chorus, it just sort of goes into this mellow sort of keyboards. Yeah. Whereas like this pulse and a Grace to Grace.
Yeah.
I'll let you fill the lyrics in.
Yeah, I like the dynamics of this. This one, I think, very much could be a Rush. This can be out of
This is my favourite song on the album.
This again, arguably, is certainly one of my favourites on the album.
Yeah,
definitely one of my favourites. But I like the way it motors along, and then the dynamic of just cutting it right back. Such a nice contrast, and it lets the lyrics stand out again. And again, I've also put a comment on this one. I can only imagine the sort of solo that Lyson would have put on this one as well. Let's have a look at the lyrics.
But I really like, because with that chorus, during the last chorus, it kicks in with the drums and the guitar, and he just lets it ring out, going Grace to Grace, and it kind of ends quite a melancholic album on the whole. It kind of ends it on a more hopeful note. It's sort of
it's more open-ended.
Not really sure what's on the horizon, but you're getting that feeling all the way through it. But on this one, it's like, well, I'm not actually sure what's on the horizon, but something good could come along. It ends on a more hopeful note.
It definitely, certainly. I think with just the song title, Grace to Grace, it could be around about this time that he was doing this album, or toward the end of it, perhaps there was some intimation that Neil was looking to come back and do something, or even just the possibility of talking about perhaps getting together. I think that's how Alex described it. It was quite a fragile thing. But yeah, the chorus on this is very nice. Grace to Grace, immaculate vision of what should have been, face to face, eloquent stories of what could have been. And as you say, it just at the end there, it's just a repeat of that all the way, and then just singing that Grace to Grace soaring at the end there is nice. Verses again, I won't. 100,000 years, 100,000 miles of track, 100,000 years, 100,000 souls you can't give back. When the dark subsides and eternity goes by, on the fault line between then and now. When the truth hides and eternity goes by, on the fault line between then and now, we sort of like almost like a phrase. Yeah, again, it goes back to the 100,000 dreams, 1,000 beams of light, 100,000 schemes. Gods in the heavens can't get it right. Again, clever lyrics on this one. A bit more straightforward than some of the others, I guess, but it has that more upbeat feel to it. And a good way, I think, to finish the album.
Yeah.
Definitely a good way to finish the album. Like we've discussed before, running orders are quite important on the album.
Oh, so definitely. I think that's such an understated.
Yeah, it is. I definitely think that. And I mean, you come up with all sorts of examples of where the running of an album just makes it such an enjoyable journey to embark on. And this one's no different with that. I definitely think that. I know we've got the two.
Right, shall we sum up the album and then do the two separately, because they are.
Go on then, Joe. Where you go?
Well, I think an interesting album, quite a mellow yet melancholy album with a hopeful feel to it as well. I think it's definitely worth investing in if this album has passed you by and you are a Rush fan. I do think it is a pretty. I think it's essential to the collection. I think it's worth having. And it was a worthy endeavour. All in all, I'm glad he did it.
I think so. I would agree with that completely.
And it kind of gives you a bit of a. It helps you ponder what is outside of Rush. Like he said, you'd wonder now and then what else is out there, and it gives you a look into what would have been had Geddy gone on to be a solo artist. But I'm glad that isn't what happened, and I'm glad the band did come back. But a nice little stopgap in between, a nice little what's the word? Nice little side project to visit.
Oh, I think I think very much a side project. Is there anything else you wanted to say? And then
No, I think that's it really. It's if you are a Rush fan and you have passed the album on because it wasn't that, it kind of just came and went and didn't.
Yeah.
I think it is a nice little hidden gem to add to your collection.
Yeah. Definitely. And my own feelings are pretty much the same. It is arguable that every one of these tracks could be used on Rush.
Yeah, and it's not a million miles away from what Rush were doing anyway.
No.
It's not unfamiliar territory.
I think there are certain highlights for me. Certainly the opening track, My Favourite Headache, is good. Present Tense, definitely more of a Rush-esque song. But for me, the highlights are Working at Perfect, The Angels Share, Slipping, and I'd probably say Still as well, but certainly Slipping and Grace to Grace are probably my favourites on the album. But that's not to say that the rest of the album is something that I would skip over. I think there is a good quality throughout this album. So I would agree and endorse what Joe says. And I haven't got it. I borrowed this. It's a good album. It's a good album, and it's one that I should get.
Yeah, right. Well, so that was in 2000, and then 2023, Geddy releases a autobiography, My Effing Life, which he does a tour with, a spoken word Q&A tour, and with the audio book of that, 2 songs that were recorded during the sessions of this album that were left in demo form were finished off. I'm guessing maybe Ben added some guitar to it or something like that. maybe they just filled the songs out. He may have just recorded some bass and vocals and like the main melody, and then I don't know what they've done, but
well, no, that's what I don't know. I tried.
Although there is a I've noticed there is a podcast similar to ours called Rush Fans.
Okay.
And they have actually done an interview with Ben Mintz and David Calcano. I don't know how you pronounce that. Talking about this album. So there you go. You can go check that out.
Right, that's fair enough.
And you probably get some insight into the album. But yeah, let's quickly go into the songs then. I mean, you've listened to these a bit more than I have, but Gone reminds me of a bit like a country song, really.
It's quite slow, so I quite like this. I quite like the tempo. It's very, again, you just sort of imagine it sort of the end of a day, nice sunset, and you're just sort of listening to this. Quite subtle. I quite like the subtle drumming on this. There's a lot of ghosting on the snare and nice layering of the strings. Again, I think it's quite an emotive song, but quite understated. I think the melody, the vocal melody, is quite an understated vocal line, and the arrangement is also quite understated as well. Obviously, the chorus is just gone. It's basically, but the lyrics on it are quite sparse. Sun's in my eyes, feels like an hour. I just can't believe there is such a power. Is such a power as this, and then goes into Gone. I toss in my sleep. The thoughts just keep coming. Desire to keep. Your features are falling. Your features are falling from view. I lose my breath. I cannot breathe. I search for words I can't believe. The sun cannot rise. There is no need. Let the rain keep falling as if the universe bleeds. Let the universe bleed on me. Just it like you said, it's quite melancholic, really. Again, it's almost like mourning the loss of somebody.
Both songs, I think it was probably fitting that they weren't on the album, because there was a lot of there's a lot of mellow and melancholic songs on this album, and if these two would have been on there as well, I think it probably would have made a bit of a slog of a record.
For your, I know you've listened to them, possibly not listened to them as much as I have, but I haven't listened to them a lot. I would say both of these songs are quite unrush-like. To me. I just don't think that this is very much Geddy on his own, really, with this one. I've got no other comments. It was interesting listening to it with the sparseness, but also the very subtlety of the arrangement of the entire song. And I think just the way Geddy sings it is just quite mellow. But you could, I think I do. To me, it's sort of just, I can just imagine sitting on some veranda somewhere, just watching the sunset, a nice evening, and you're just there with a cool drink or something and just listening to this.
The artwork that accompanies them as well is quite fitting. You've got like a forest with like a kind of like a Northern Lights skyline. It's up on its side, but still, it's
you've still got that. That
what you're describing still conjures up imagery.
It's still got that to me. Again, I'm glad that he's released it, because it's worth a listen.
It is worth a listen, but I think it was right to be left off the album.
Definitely. I think both of these probably.
Right. I Am You Are has got a bit more going on than Gone. It's got a bit of saxophone. There's a bit more drums on there as the song goes on, and it sort of picks up a bit of pace.
No, I agree with you. I think it is. I think it's got a nice I've put down here, it's got a nice little lilt to it. It just and I like the little guitar hook on this one. It just sort of.
It feels like I Am You Are's got more added to it, doesn't it?
It's sort of more. Much... Yeah, with the guitar hook, it sort of just tends to punctuate the song a little bit more. Again, I think it's still quite an atmospheric song, but again, I like the interesting cut in the dynamics for the chorus because it cuts it right back.
Yeah.
To just let the voice soar over the top. And again, very simple, but there's a lot of, it conveys a lot of meaning. You can feel it. The I am, you said, you are, I said, I am, you are, I am. But the verses are not too bad. Again, I won't quote the whole lot. Just says, are you a victim? Am I a friend? Requires some reflection. Obtain the means, justify the end. Depends on your connections. Treat you like a sister, love like a lover. Defies my explanation. Train the animal to cross that line. Requires sublimation. It again, like you said, probably wise not to have it on the album, but again, it's still a nice listen. And I love the you got a lovely electric violin solo on this.
Yeah,
really lovely, and it really fits the bill. Very, very, very nice, and it cuts through really lovely on it. And again, just the string arrangement, it just sort of lifts the whole thing. So again, I think his vocal performance on this one, again, he's sort of quite understated again.
I don't know if this is a new vocal performance either. Is he?
It might be. I really have no idea.
Has he just touched up the demos and just added some tracks to it to finish it off and bulk it out and mix it properly, or has he actually recorded the songs? I don't quite know the but the extent of it. But no, as I say, it's nice. I'm glad we've got it, but I can also see, listening to it back to back, I can see why they were left off the album.
Yeah,
who knows? Maybe a nice little reissue with them added to it would be.
Well, possibly that might
some
be
other bits and bobs thrown in. Who knows?
There is. I think I've seen somewhere that there. I don't know whether again it might have been a very limited run, but I think I see on. I think it was on this actually when I see the lyrics. I don't know if there is another version of this album. It might have just been an American release, but there are two instrumental versions of. Where are we? Sorry, bear with me a moment.
Probably a Japanese as well. The Japanese
it might be. I think
it's track, don't they?
It's there's My Favourite Headache and Home on the Strange purely as instrumentals. That's it. That's all. But again, it could well be some sort of import. But and I've not heard that. But that's all it's got on it. And then But I hope they do, or Geddy will do what you've suggested in reissuing My Favourite Headache with these two songs on it.
Yeah.
Just to totally bookend it and it's there. That would be good. But
maybe chucking some liner notes or something like that. Just give us a nice little revisit of it, really.
Yeah, I mean, with the liner notes, is there anything that leapt at you? I mean, there's not an awful lot of liner notes on this album.
Oh, I mean, with the reissue, add some liner notes, maybe write an essay or some reflection on it or something. Maybe go through the songs, what the lyrics are about, something like that. But yeah, his spoken word tour, I think, is still going on. I'm seeing various clips. I don't know how long that's going to go on for, but and we'll see what the future holds. Because Alex has done a couple of shows with him as well, and it seems like they're keen to do something together. So time will tell what that will result.
Whether it will be Rush or not, I think we've spoken about this before, haven't we?
But
it'll be interesting. I mean, I've watched. I don't know whether you have, but I watched on YouTube when they played at that tribute gig to Taylor Hawkins. That they did 2112, Working Man, and YYZ. And for 2112, it was David Grohl playing the drums.
Yeah.
Working Man was Chad Smith, and YYZ was Dan Carey.
Right, well, there you go. Yeah, I mean,
and it weren't bad at all. I mean, you can hear that Neil's not there because they're doing it slightly differently.
If they do decide to tour, I mean, who's going to play the drums? I think your guess is as good as mine. I think if I was a betting man, I would say Danny Carey, but
that's who can tell? Yeah, who can tell? I think. Well, as you said, I think it's a case of watch this space and see what happens.
Yeah.
I think the one thing is with Geddy and Alex is that if it doesn't come up to standard, they won't do it.
No, exactly.
So, and I think that's no way putting down any drummers. It's just a case that I think. Remember, there was three of them.
It's got to be there. Whatever that thing is, it has to be there. And if it's not there, the best drum in the world ain't gonna be able to bring it out.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's that, and again, I'm sure we've spoken about it on a previous show that it won't just be the music they're listening to. They're going to be listening, if especially with new material, is what the lyrical content is going to be like. But in having said that, Geddy's lyrical efforts on his album
shows that he's up to the task.
It's not a bad replacement. So I think it's in safe hands, and at the end of the day, Lee and Lifeson have been there right from the word go.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
as soon as they're in the same room together, they're Rush.
You know? Exactly. So let's see what happens with that. And it was good. It was good to listen to that album again. I've only listened to it a couple of times prior, but I've got more into it. I don't know. Perhaps it's just because I'm a bit older now. I've just managed to pick out more on it that sort of speaks to me today. So yeah it was a good effort, and I enjoyed it. And I think that's really it. We're now effectively we're on the home straight, really.
Yeah, folks, that's episode 18 in the bag, and as we know, Neil did come around, and the band did get back together, and we had Vapor Trails, which we'll be covering in the next episode. So if you've made it this far, thanks very much for watching. If you could give us one of them, give it a share. If you're talking to anyone with Rush, your friends about Rush, if you're listening to it, tell a mate. And use this as your guide. If you look on the playlists of the channel, all of the Rushcast episodes are all together there in a list for you. So go to the beginning. It's January. Maybe get your Rush records out and listen along. You know, either use this as an introduction or an afterthought. What's he barking at? And go for the catalog yourself, using this as a guide, as a companion piece. So thanks a lot, everyone. And we shall see you next week.
Yep. See you next week, folks. Take care.
Take care.